The inclusion of the Fighter Pass in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is one that I really appreciate, because it allows fans to continue speculating about whether or not their favorite character can end up being included in the roster of the game. The character speculation is one of my favorite parts about the Smash Bros. Experience. Who's going to be next? And this question still has to be answered for 2 more DLC fighters coming in the Smash Ultimate Fighter Pass. But will those 2 characters be the final characters included in Smash Ultimate? Is this Fighter Pass going to be the only Fighter Pass? In today's video, I wanted to focus on the idea that's been thrown around a lot by Super Smash Bros. Fans, this being the Echo Fighter Pass, a form of paid DLC just like this regular Fighter Pass with 5 characters, potentially with music and stages, but it includes Echo Fighters instead of standard fighters. Echo Fighters were a fairly prominent addition into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now, clone characters have existed for a long time in the Super Smash Bros. Series, but now they're officially branding these characters as clones, and I really appreciate that they're actually acknowledging that these characters are clones and not just shoving them into the roster and expecting everybody to treat them like new characters. If a character blatantly rips off another's moveset, then it's an unoriginal fighter and should be treated as such. But because of this newfound branding, a lot of people have been speculating about what new possibilities for Echo Fighters there could be in the roster. There were many introduced for Smash Ultimate, but there's definitely the potential for more. So how would an Echo Fighter Pass work in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? And how likely do I think it is? And the biggest question of all, which characters could be included in this Echo Fighter Pass? Let's get started. When beginning to speculate about whether or not an Echo Fighter Pass is actually plausible, I think it's very important to go back and look at the Smash 4 DLC and find out how many characters were included for that game's DLC. We're getting 5 characters included as paid DLC for Smash Ultimate, and Piranha Plant was sort of an early purchase bonus, so we could throw it in as 6. These 6 characters, by the way, are all completely original fighters. But even if you include Piranha Plant, making the total 6, Smash 4 still had more, being 7 DLC fighters. 4 of these characters were completely new additions to the Smash Bros. Roster, while 3 of them were returning veterans. But it is still more than Ultimate, and if Ultimate really wants to go above and beyond here, then you'd think they'd want to have more DLC fighters than the previous installment in the series. Smash 4 came out in 2014, and DLC released until 2016, the last main year of the Wii U life cycle because the Switch came out the year after. Whereas with Smash Ultimate, the game came out in 2018, and by February of 2020, all of the DLC characters for the Fighter Pass are supposed to be released. And it's fairly safe to assume that 2020 will not be the last year of the Switch's life cycle. This means that if Nintendo wants to continue engaging consumers about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate more following its release, they're going to have to continue to release DLC beyond 2020, considering that the Switch's life cycle will likely last for a few more years after that. So those 2 points combined together, I think really support the idea that an Echo Fighter Pass could end up existing. Another point for this is that Echo Fighters are a lot easier to create than normal fighters for the roster. This has been stated by Sakurai multiple times as a reason for why Echo Fighters are more prominent for this game. Obviously, the main priority for Smash Ultimate was to bring back all of the characters from the past and allow them to return. The ability to have the slogan "Everyone is here for the game" I think was very important to the staff. But because of the huge emphasis on returning fighters, newcomers were somewhat limited, and that meant that more focus would have to be placed on Echo Fighters, considering that you don't have to create an entirely original moveset for them. So those are some points supporting the idea that an Echo Fighter Pass could be a thing. But what would the pricing model be like for it? The existing Fighter Pass for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has each character priced at $6 US and $25 for the entire pass. So by purchasing the whole thing, you do end up getting a discount. But for Echo Fighters, who as we've established are not entirely original, this price should be expected to go down, right? If Nintendo does include music and a stage for Echo Fighters, then they could probably charge $5 per character and $20 for the Fighter Pass instead of $25. This will lower the overall price, but I still think it would be high enough for Nintendo to still make a large profit off of selling all of this content. But I do think there is a possibility that a stage and music may not be included in a potential Echo Fighter Pass, because there would be complications. All of the Echo Fighters in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate come from a specific series that they're ripping the character off of. Dark Pit is based on regular Pit, Daisy is based on Peach, and so on. These series already have stages and music implemented implemented into Super Smash Bros. Whereas on the other hand, when you look at the fighter pass that they're actually doing, these characters are all brand new to the roster, and these are from new series to the Super Smash Bros. Brand. So it makes sense for why you would have a whole new stage and a ton of music tracks included with these characters. But if you were to include a new Mario character as an Echo Fighter, for example, there wouldn't be as much music or potentially even a stage to draw from for that character. It would be more difficult to end up including something like that because the series already has its roots established in the game. But I'm sure Nintendo is very creative and could possibly come up with some reason to include a brand new stage and some more obscure music tracks, for example, that some hardcore fans of the series may like. If they really desire to put music and stages in this DLC pack, then I think it'll end up getting done. They'll find a way. But I do think there is a chance that it's not going to be included. And if that's the case, then the price will definitely be dropped. To what number, I think it's pretty difficult to determine, considering that this is a lot of content being included with the characters, but the characters are the main focus here. But let's move on now to one of the most fun aspects of the video today. Who are some of the characters who I think have a really good chance of being included in a potential Echo Fighter pass? I'm going to start off with 3 very popular Echo Fighter requests, and we'll move on from there. Shadow is probably the most popular Echo Fighter request, considering that the Sonic the Hedgehog series is extremely popular, and while some other third-party series have 2 characters included in the roster, with one of them being an Echo, primarily Street Fighter and Castlevania, Sonic doesn't have this luxury, and I think that it would be really fun to include an original Sonic fighter into the roster, as I've talked about in previous videos, but the easiest option is to include an Echo fighter, and Shadow the Hedgehog would definitely be the frontrunner here. Metal Sonic is a possibility as well, but I think Shadow is more popular and well known here. I think it would also be a lot easier to create a stage and definitely music for Shadow the Hedgehog, considering that he's got his own game and there's a ton of music tracks there that you could draw from that aren't included in Smash Ultimate already. Another popular Echo Fighter request is Dixie Kong. The Donkey Kong series sort of saw a resurrection in Super Smash Bros. With a brand new representative being included for Smash Ultimate, being King K. Rool. This is a fun character inclusion, but a lot of people were requesting for Dixie Kong to be included instead. And my response to that is, why can't both of them be included? Dixie Kong would definitely be a fun character, obviously ripping off of Diddy Kong, but she could potentially use her tail for some attacks, for example. She could be a really fun and wacky character to use in the game. Final really popular Echo Fighter requests that I see are Octolings from Splatoon. These are probably the most popular villains from the Splatoon series because they're fairly popular to see within the games. And they have similar abilities to the Inklings, which is their main component. With the Octo expansion being released for Splatoon 2, I think requests for the Octolings have definitely increased. Splatoon has shown that the series games can sell a ton of units, and it's definitely become one of the biggest Nintendo series right now. So Octolings being included in Smash would definitely make a lot of sense. However, there are some very big problems with Echo Fighter requests, primarily with a character like Shadow the Hedgehog, because he's already an assist trophy in the game. Now, characters who are spirits in the game, I think do have a chance to actually have a fighter come for them. I don't think spirits explicitly deconfirm fighters, however we have no hard evidence supporting that statement yet, so maybe they do. But an assist trophy on the other hand, I think that's a bigger thing to replace than a simple spirit. Shadow is already one of the most prominent assist trophies in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate just because of the sheer amount of character requests for him. But would they really want a character to be both a playable fighter and an assist trophy in the same game? It would seem a little redundant, and it would be weird to have Shadow summoning another Shadow to fight for him. But you could think about it from another perspective, how you already have the same character being able to be played multiple times in the same Smash game. For example, you could have an 8-player Smash with all Marios being played, and you could have this be a team Smash with multiple Marios helping each other out. I think this could be a similar situation where Shadow is helped by another Shadow. So that means that this may not be that big of a deal, and potentially an assist trophy could get replaced. But this may be a hurdle that Nintendo doesn't want to have to cross. And if Shadow is not included in an Echo Fighter pass, then I think there would be a ton of outrage from the Nintendo community that Nintendo may just not want to deal with. I'm going to quickly go over some other Echo Fighter ideas that I don't think are as popularly requested for, but are thrown around here and there. Birdo I think could definitely work as an interesting Echo Fighter to Yoshi, as she could suck people up and put them in an egg rather than Yoshi sticking his tongue out to put them in an egg. Obviously some slight differences would have to be included in the moveset, and I think Birdo could potentially be a character that you'd want to have be an original fighter instead, but an Echo could also work. Black Shadow could be an interesting representative from the F-Zero series, as we only have one being Captain Falcon. If Nintendo is planning on reviving the F-Zero series one day, then I definitely think they'd want to put in another F-Zero fighter into the game. Ninten from Earthbound Beginnings could be an interesting inclusion. He's not as prominent of a character as Ness or Lucas, but they could potentially include Ninten in as an Echo Fighter for Ness if they really wanted to. I'm not sure how many people would actually want to go out and pay for him, which could be an issue. Dry Bowser is definitely a possibility as an Echo Fighter for Bowser, obviously. He could throw bones instead of shooting fire as one of the main differences, but other than that, could have a fairly similar moveset to Bowser. There are a couple of other characters that could be interesting Echo Fighters for him, such as Dark Bowser or Midbis, but Midbis is a little bit more obscure, and I think they would rather put in Fawful if they're going to bring in a Bowser's Inside Story representative. Celica from Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia could be an interesting Echo Fighter for Robin. That game is a remake, and I think they would probably want to push Three Houses more if they're going to include a new Fire Emblem character though. Medusa from Kid Icarus could be a very interesting Echo Fighter for Palutena, being a more evil version of the character but using a similar moveset. Miss Pac-Man could be an interesting Echo Fighter for Pac-Man, albeit a little bit unnecessary though. I do think she should just be a palette swap. Proto Man from Mega Man could be an interesting inclusion as an Echo Fighter as well. And the last character that I wanted to talk about here is Funky Kong. Whenever I talk about Dixie Kong being included as an Echo Fighter, I always get comments talking about how Funky Kong would be a better choice. He does have a lot of support to be an Echo Fighter for Donkey Kong, but I do think that an original character slot for him may make a little more sense, considering how he uses his surfboard, and that could potentially be used for a lot more interesting moveset possibilities. But if there is going to be one character included, either Dixie Kong or Funky Kong, assuming both are Echo Fighters, I definitely think Dixie is the much more likely character. She's a lot more popular and has a lot more history with the series than Funky Kong does. But after going over all of these character ideas, some evidence for and some evidence against the possibility of an Echo Fighter pass, what do I think overall is going to happen here? Overall, I don't think that there's going to be an Echo Fighter pass, because of the character limitations as I talked about before, with some being assist trophies, and some already being included in other areas of the game, such as in a spirit form for example. There would be payment complications as well, and I don't know if Nintendo is going to end up including music and stages along with it, and if they're not, do they really think they're going to make that much of a profit off of this? And another piece of evidence that I think is against the idea of an Echo Fighter Pass is that the DLC time frame is already a little bit similar to Smash 4's. Sure, it doesn't align with the end of the console's lifespan, but it's also around that 2-year window. I do think there is a chance for an Echo Fighter Pass though, even though I do think that it's more likely that we don't get one. It would be really nice to continue the lifespan of Smash Ultimate even further beyond February of 2020 with new content, but even if we don't get this new content for Smash Ultimate, the lifespan is going to continue anyways. Smash Brothers is a massive brand with a ton of fans included with it, and the fans are what's going to be the main thing keeping Smash Brothers alive. There are going to be Smash characters releasing next year, but what's going to be Nintendo's biggest game for 2020? If you're interested in that, check out my previous video talking about what Nintendo's big holiday release for 2020 is going to be. And I have other Smash Brothers content linked for you on the screen as well. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you next time.